Hello everyone, my name is Mario, and the team that I'm part of for TreeHacks 2022 is Scout. So our project, if I were to summarize it in one sentence, is that we detect and warn customers about breaches. So over here on this page, I have four example sites, and I'll get into why I have four in a second, but I want to start off with Stack Overflow. This is a site that's never had a breach before, so from our perspective, we want to show customers that it's safe to right? Because we're trying to go for the cybersecurity challenge, and the goal is to improve information around cybersecurity practices around the world. So if I'm going to refresh this page to show you that it's not actually inspected element on the page, you'll see that the Chrome extension, so called Scout, actually caused a pop-up to occur. With good news, Stack Overflow has never been breached before. If I go to Yahoo, so the second tab of these four, and I refresh again, the same Chrome extension is going to give me a breakdown of why Yahoo has been breached before. The idea behind this Chrome extension is that when it's installed, there's no more maintenance required. Any person who wants to practice web safety actually be aware of the cybersecurity standards out there, what's actually going on in terms of breaches and data leaks of passwords and usernames, can just use this extension to identify any website that has a breach recorded from our database. So I'll get into the database in a second, but you can see that we've scored this with a severity of yellow. We're talking about the last breach, which was in 2012, quite a bit away. It's been 10 years or so, right? That's why we scored as yellow. And we're also talking about the number of counts. These are going to be the number of rows that were actually exposed in that database. If we go to protect your information, the customer will then be redirected to four or so links about how to actually improve their safety on the internet. Because the idea behind this extension is that once you identify that there was a breach and you're telling the customer this is not a good site to be on, you want to teach the customer how to prevent these kind of breaches in the future by using strong passwords that are maybe specific to one site. So they could go to this link over here to see that, or about how to actually remember passwords safely so they're not forgetting it and having to constantly reset it or write it on. Some people even do notepads in their office where any of their coworkers can see it. So the extension is setting a platform for us to actually advertise these links, has good information to show to the customer. Third link that I want to show is actually Gun Trader. So if I refresh this, this is again going to be a orange severity. So between yellow and the final severity, which is on Chegg Study, this is going to be red. So the way we actually determine all these numbers, like the breach accounts or date of last breach, is that before we even got into using Bubble.io, that's the platform we use for the front end and back end for our actual pop-up here. Before we even dabbled with that, we actually use a lot of Python analytics based on pandas, NumPy, scikit-learn, etc. to aggregate a bunch of news sources that were publicly available out there on the web into one singular database with rows about breaches that occurred, the number of accounts affected in those breaches, as well as the dates of those breaches. We then developed our own heuristic based on scikit-learn to then give a severity score. The severity score is not presented to the user because we understand that the audience using this extension is often people that don't understand all the technical stuff behind it. So rather than presenting that raw number of the severity score, we have three buckets like we were showing. So the yellow, orange, red, and then we group the score based on how high it is along the scale. The score is determined based on the date, the number of accounts, as well as the categories of data leaked. We're talking about a very insensitive link, or leak, sorry. It might be data like the favorite video game of someone on Steam, right? But if we're talking about a more sensitive leak, that's actually passwords, usernames, going up all the way to most sensitive, which is SSN. So all of that is taken into account by our algorithm in Python that is done behind the scenes. Once we've consolidated all the scores, we then uploaded them to our Bubble.io database. Bubble.io platform allows us to take this data and put it in a front end without having to worry about the code complexity of actually deploying this pop-up. We only had to really worry from a code perspective about the algorithmic analysis. And once that was figured out, Bubble.io made the transition into an actual product very easy. That is all for this 4-tab demo. And now I'll be jumping into the system architecture if you're willing to listen a bit more.